As Ben looked out into the emptiness of space, he immediately looked away, telling himself that he needed to focus. He slid back underneath one of the jets in the facility, using his tools to cut the wires beneath the air jets so he wouldn't get his face blasted off by the pressurized air and Omni energy. He was currently in Sector 23A, one of the bases on Earth with the highest security possible, to send materials back from Earth to Azimuth's home base on the intergalactic trading planet Anur-Kuphos. Ben had had enough of Azimuth's routine of sending down one of his experiments, the Omnitrix, to Ben's experimental bloodline, allowing him to transform into other alien species and lengthening his lifespan. But when Azimuth had a new prototype ready, he would remotely kill Ben from a distance, clone him, and send the upgraded version to them, to then repeat the cycle all over again. This current Ben was the wielder of the Quad Omnitrix, the fourth iteration of the Omnitrix, allowing him to fuse 4 aliens together into one. He'd used a nanomech, grey matter, ghost freak, and chameleon fusion to sneak into the base, and it was easily the most difficult thing he'd ever done. As the boosters roared and the jet took off, Ben once more transformed into the same alien, but replacing grey matter with spider monkey so he wouldn't lose his grip and fall to his death. He swung himself around to crash through the window of the jet, transforming back into his human form. He had enjoyed training without his Quad Omnitrix recently, but the battle turned out to be too much and he transformed into one of his go-to fusions, Feed Blast Hazard Grade. He knocked out all the soldiers, threw them out to the base now hundreds of feet below, and fixed the window using his flames. He then used his upgrade DNA to boost the jet's speed enough to avoid the jets close on his tail, and took off into the stars. He reached a space station in the orbit of Anur-Milgan, a close-by planet to the intergalactic trade planet, and that's where he was attacked. A blue-cloaked assassin with magic charms covering their body. They kicked Ben in the chest, sending him hurtling back into some crates, then going forward and grabbing Ben's neck in one hand, and a knife in the other. She asked, "What's your relation to Azimuth and why are you here?" Ben panicked and instinctively wanted to transform and attack the assassin, named Gwen, but tried to stay calm as he explained he was part of the Omnitrix bloodline. Gwen understandably didn't believe him and asked him to transform so she could believe him. Ben did so, and Gwen explained that she was a vigilante, focused on taking down the corrupt Anur government. 5 minutes into his transformation, Ben's Quad Omnitrix started sparking and bursting out into green lightning. Ben quickly transformed back to his human form to try controlling it. Black veins and burns stretched across Ben's arm and onto the rest of his body, and he realised what was happening. Azimuth was killing him to move on to the next prototype, the Quint Omnitrix. Ben shouted out what was happening to him to Gwen, and almost immediately formed a plan. He knew he would soon be cloned, but told Gwen that if she could take the Quad Omnitrix as it was upgrading, she could wear the Quint Omnitrix without Ben being cloned. But Gwen realised what this would mean. Ben would have to die. Gwen nodded in agreement and followed up on the plan, taking the Quint Omnitrix as its form fitted onto her forearm. Then, suddenly, the dark metal space around her erupted into contrasting energy and light, and trioids all walked out. Gwen realised they must have been securing Ben being cloned, and recognised what the trioids were. She'd been hired to take out Azimuth before, and learned about the trioids, an enhanced version of one of Azimuth's first inventions that he used to protect his base. Trioids were bulky robots that could transform, similarly to the Bi-Omnitrix of Ben's grandfather, into fusions of 2 different aliens, but they didn't have the capacity to fuse ultimates like the Quint Omnitrix did. Gwen recognised the CPU on one of the bots and realised they were all likely low quality and would all share at minimum 1 species between all their fusions. Gwen immediately activated the Quintomnatrix and it randomized her into Fridville Niter, a fusion between Wildvine Ditto, Frankenstrike Mutilator, and Ultimate Spider Monkey. She felt some of the abilities, like Ditto's duplication and Mutilator's acid, diluted, and her power of plant manipulation wouldn't be much use in the space station. The Trioids all transformed into various Part-Snaro fusions. It took her almost a half hour, but she eventually used her electric webs to take out all the fusions and head to Anerkuthos, hoping to find some place to train her abilities. When she arrived, entering the atmosphere, she saw that the planet was half desert, half mess of robotic buildings and cities, a good reminder of how much pain and pollution Azimuth and the Iners government's experiments caused. When she arrived in her human form, she almost immediately saw the entire city, almost plastered with wanted posters against her. She transformed into a fusion between Energy, Water Hazard, Armadillo, Terraspin, and Amphibian to try and blend in with the wide variety of alien species that lived in the city. She eventually found a sort of training dojo, led by people who had once worked for Azimuth, and not only did they help her fighting skills, they taught her about making more compatible fusions, and even taught her some voice commands and mental signals for the Quintomnatrix. She even felt Azimuth try and kill her at a distance, but she wasn't part of the Omnitrix bloodline, it didn't work. Gwen realised she would have to find a specific fusion to use, so she'd be used to it when hunting Azimuth. After a week of researching compatibility in the aliens she were used to, she found the transformation she was used. Humongotrolt. A fusion between Humongosaur for its raw strength and armour that paired well with the next alien, Cannonbolt. Despite being unable to roll up, its armour's parts would prove useful. It included Shock Squatch for more raw power and electricity that can conduct through the gas of the next alien, Gutrot. And lastly, Jury Rig to allow her for better strategies mid-battle. After 3 months, she was ready. Her trainers wished her luck, and using both Humongotrolt and the alien she'd used to blend in, Andromeda, to take out all the Trioid and Galvanic Mechamorph guards. Azimuth clearly realised, as Gwen felt herself being weakened at a distance, but it wasn't enough. When she finally reached the top, she realised Azimuth had been working on a new experiment ever since Gwen arrived in the city. Your reign of terror is over, Azimuth. No species should ever have to live just for your experiments, and they never will again. Quintomnatrix, give me the most powerful and compatible fusion you can. Gwen suddenly felt her skin harden and expand into golden plates as she burst and exploded, growing into a kaiju-sized fusion. She decided to name this fusion Powerhouse, and it was a fusion between Wrath, Waybig, Clockwork, Chromastone, and Ultimate Echo. Azimuth, the grey, frog-like, wrinkly, scarred humanoid, grabbed what looked like a dark blue chest plate next to him, with an Omnitrix-like symbol in the middle, though clearly not finished. This prototype might not be ready yet, and I wasn't planning on starting this bloodline, but to squash an insolent bug beneath my boot, this will be worth it. He smashed the machine into his chest, releasing an echoing lightning shockwave across the city, notifying almost everybody in the area of their imminent battle. He shrieked out in pain as he grew and warped into a version of Waybig with black and dark blue armour, and the machine forged into the flesh of his chest. Gwen stared Azimuth down as she flew up and floated above him. Fine, let's dance, you little wart. Gwen spawned a sound blast out of her back, propelling herself forward to punch Azimuth in the face. Azimuth held up his forearm to block the fist, and began bursting into smoke as he used super speed to pummel his fist directly into Gwen's chest. The last punch sending her flying back through one of the city's skyscrapers. She used to glean energy from her arm, and Clockwork's now enhanced time powers to reform the building, saving anyone who had died in the crash. Gwen flew up above the building, but almost immediately created a shield of purple crystals ahead of her to absorb an exploding beam of black energy shooting from Azimuth's hand. By that time, the intergalactic police had shown up to evacuate the area. Gwen created a ball of chromastone energy in one hand, throwing it beside Azimuth's feet. She wanted to make Azimuth flinch, then fly ahead and pummel him, but Azimuth didn't move, using the momentum to spin around in a flaming tornado of magma and fire and grab Gwen's neck, lifting her up, which spread red veins across her head. Gwen spun her two arms detached from her body to hit Azimuth's head, but he once again barely flinched. But just enough for Gwen to send a mental signal to her Quintomnatrix, transforming her back into Fridville Niter, and she almost immediately started tumbling towards the floor of the city, but she launched an electric web beneath Azimuth's arm to swing around him. Then she transformed back into Powerhouse, enlarging the web along with her to throw Azimuth over her shoulder and crash him into the ground. Gwen released 12 sound discs covered in clockwork armor and chromastone crystals around Azimuth, and they all exploded into rainbow energy and deafening sound that made Azimuth's body explode into red energy and ashes. Even if their brawl had destroyed most of the city, Gwen's training and Ben's sacrifice had finally taken out the worst villain in the universe.